Hi, I'm Steven, otherwise known as Ninja, and welcome to the Gamespherecast. Now, today's a very special episode, as I say a lot, because on yesterday, at the time of this recording, our co-host, Paradox Multimedia of Paradox Multi-Media, released an album called Look to the Sky. So, we are interviewing him about that, and by we, I mean just me. Now, we have a special guest for this episode. It's Paradox Multimedia of Paradox Multi-Media. Come on in, Paradox Multimedia of Paradox Multi-Media.
Hi.
Insert the applause.
That was weird.
Just insert an applause. That's... Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to get my inner Jimmy Kimmel out. So like...
Your inner Jimmy...
So...
Dang it, you got me doing it. Inner Jimmy Kimmel.
It's a weird saying. Welcome to the podcast. And, so first we're going to start off. Would you like to tell the audience just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm editor for the podcast, as well as a graphic design graduate. I went to school for graphic design, got my associates in it, and I've kind of been teaching myself music production for the past 3 years.
Nice. Congratulations. Is this... I don't know what question I'm going to ask first, so I'm just going to jump right into it. Is this your first album?
No, and anybody who actually watches the Gamespherecast, which if you don't, how are you here? Last year we actually did another interview, and by we, I mean that Ninja, Steven,
yes,
whatever you want to call him,
that thing,
interviewed me about my first official album called Unison.
Yes.
Which you should go check that out to hear what we discussed about that. If you want.
Okay. Thank you for plugging.
But this is my second, I guess, solo album. I had another album 2 months before this album that came out that I did music production for, but it was for another person. That was called Survivor.
Huh. Interesting. So let's just go ahead and jump right into the album. So before this album that came out, you released... Well, okay. Before this, your prior solo adventure was Gems of a Different Luster, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
The Gems and Luster.
Gems and Luster,
Gems
sorry.
Of Different Luster was...
The song, yeah. Sorry about that.
Yeah. I get it mixed up myself sometimes. Yeah. I'm the one who made it. Gem of a Different Luster was the title track for the EP, which is also featured on the album. The reason for that was that at the time when I was producing Gems and Luster, and at the same time Look to the Sky, production started like a week or two after the release of Unison. I just couldn't get any inspiration whatsoever, and I wanted... The last song I had worked on for Unison, as I mentioned in the other interview, was Stand in Unison. And that's where the title of the album came from, and... Yeah. I don't know where I was going to go with that, but I talked about how Stand in Unison was kind of supposed to invoke a vibe of, like, standing together, which is a weird thing thinking about everything going on right now.
Yeah.
But staying positive is the idea of, like, standing together as one despite our differences. But Gem of a Different Luster came from the flip side of that, where despite, like, it being important to be together as one, everybody can everyone's an individual. Everybody can shine in their own way, just like gems each have their own luster to them.
Ah,
They each shine in a different way, and that's where the idea of gem of different luster came from, and that kind of sparked the fire for all of the songs I've written for these two releases. And in about a 2 week span, I had started and almost finished over 20
oh
songs.
wow. So what's the reason why like you had just like the six like Jims and Luster songs like on that EP? Were those just the first ones you had done? You were just like, screw it, I want to release something.
They weren't They weren't the first ones I had done, but they were the ones I thought worked best together at the time. A few of them that came out on Look to the Sky, and there are still some songs from those 2 weeks of production that just have not come out yet because I either finished them but thought it wasn't the right time to release them, or they're not finished yet and I want more time to work on them but haven't had the time to work on them
Yeah.
since. But six the six songs, I thought they worked best together, and because from my research, six is kind of like the max amount of tracks for an EP before it's an album.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to do an EP before
Huh.
Look to the Sky because for a couple of reasons. One, because I thought it was too soon to release another full album.
Yeah.
Because releasing 2 albums within a span of like 4 months is crazy. And doing it in the span of 8 months is crazy. And if it weren't for the fact that I've just been crazy inspired, I don't think I could have done it.
Yeah.
But also because those were the tracks that I had really wanted to get out, and I thought it would be good to get them out before the end of the year. There was one track that I had intended to be on the EP, and also later on the album, that is still kind of sitting in limbo.
Listen, I'm sorry about Old Town Road. I'm so sorry.
No.
Yeah.
As if Lil Nas X didn't have enough to look at.
Yeah.
But no, well, I'll talk about that later if you don't have any other questions.
So I have basically when listening to this whole entire album, it gives me this like both a like video game first few levels vibe and like a really like sky like space theme level vibe, and like it gives me that whole like thing where it's just like very floaty and airy in like a very good way, where it's just like uplifting and everything. Was that intentional, or is that just me going crazy?
I mean, you'll hear a lot of people say this, and there's different ideas about how to look at art. A lot of people say art is subjective and music is art. I would say there's also people that have their own differing opinions on what is art. Like a lot of people don't think photography is art because you're not actually making something.
Yeah.
But to other people, you're making art by capturing reality in eternity, I guess you could say. You're capturing a moment and freezing it in time.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say that was my intention. If that's what you got out of it, that's cool. The idea behind Look to the Sky was to be uplifting, but it was like Unison to kind of give a diverse kind of range of feelings and not exactly messages, I should say, because there aren't exactly words to these. But I kind of explained about Gem of Different Luster. Sun During the Rain and Waves in the Morning kind of came from a similar idea of just like Sun During the Rain, I guess, is like it's meant to be uplifting, but it's also meant to kind of show the idea of like, despite the rain, being able to see the sun and like seeing the good and bad.
Yeah.
And Waves During the Morning is just supposed to be like this kind of calm moment where like everything, maybe not everything's fine, but you're able to just like go with it. And I guess even though the waves are crashing, it's morning, so like it's in beginning.
Yeah.
I know I'm spouting kind of. I sound like I'm just spouting it off the top of my head, but
It sounds like you're trying to
to
create like Gandhi quotes. Yeah.
No, if I was, I would be stumbling so hard to try and think of it something.
Yeah.
But 128 beat rave and heart racing aren't as those were kind of just fun songs to work on.
Yeah.
There's no real meaning behind them, but they were just, I felt they worked because they went with that whole uplifting feeling as well as just being really fun, being really energetic, especially heart racing, which was my first one of my first drum and bass songs, the first one I've released, and kind of inspired me towards my other album coming out later this year.
Oh, go ahead.
But Diamond in a Rut, continuing with like explaining the songs, Diamond in a Rut came from, this was a song that was later and actually one of the last songs I wrote during those 2 weeks I mentioned, where I was just feeling kind of down. I was feeling kind of like, I don't know if it was burnout. I'm not sure if I've ever really felt burnout yet, and I dread the day when I do. But I was just kind of like feeling down, not really depressed, but just like not able to enjoy things, I guess. I felt like I was kind of at a low point. And then while working on the song, it kind of just, the idea of Diamond in a Rut was like knowing you're a gem, knowing you're something of value and that people know that, but you're just stuck in a place that you can't get out of.
Interesting. So throughout the whole entire album, I noticed that there was like a bit more instruments, I guess is the term that I'm thinking of. The sounds, I guess, than unison were like not sounds per se, but like just typical things. Like I could make out a piano and guitar.
There's a bit more instrumental,
and like
there's a bit more instruments to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a bit more experimental in the sound. Part of that came from one day I was scrolling through Twitter and I came across somebody, I cannot think of her name, but she goes by Squiggly Dig. She's a well-known singer, especially among the nerdcore scene, and I saw a tweet from her. I cannot remember how long ago this was. It was at least a couple months ago. And she mentioned about how she really liked when people used piano in like electronic songs because it felt
elegant.
Well, now I can't remember exactly what she said, but she said she liked it. I can't remember why she said she liked it, but like it was unique sounding. I guess it felt more organic, maybe. This is months and months ago, so I don't remember exactly what she said.
Yeah,
and I don't know if I could find the tweet, but that'd be kind of creepy, just like going through somebody's tweets. But instead of trying to find something to incriminate them, it's like trying to find something to validate.
I need that tweet from 5 years ago. Trust me.
I need this to validate my intentions as a musician. But no, I saw that and thought, that's interesting. And I thought, I really haven't heard many like electronic or dubstep kind of songs that do that. So that inspired Finer Things that inspired Look to the Sky. Kind of inspired Turmoil, Calm of the Storm, though that was a little bit less electronic. That was more of like kind of I don't want to call it orchestral because just because it has strings and piano doesn't make it orchestral. But
a bit more.
It's kind of like that, and like my desire to, because I've always wanted to really do rock music, but I've never I don't have the stuff, I guess, to do that. I don't have a way to properly record guitar, and the guitar VSTs I have are very limited. The best I can do for like rock guitar is power chords, and you can't just do an entire song in power chords. I mean, maybe you can, and I just don't know the right way to do it. But like, you can kind of hear it in the song that it's like it sounds good, but at the same time, it's like it sounds off.
Yeah.
And I would kind of attribute that to my lack of experience with that, because I haven't really done much electronic music. I shouldn't say it's easier to do, but it seems to come a bit more naturally to me.
I get that. It's like how some people can like draw backgrounds better than they can draw like characters and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I Look to the Sky was sorry.
I was just gonna say that I thought the piano worked really great with like everything. Like it really like added something to it.
Piano is really good for like emotion, I guess. Like if it's really fast and really like if it's what's the word I'm thinking for? If it's got a lot of treble, I should say. If it's like really high pitched, not like super high pitched, like.
But like in like that mid clef range.
If it's like a higher pitch, and if it's really energetic, it can be it can kind of give this like joyful kind of happy energy. But if it major, that's what I was saying. It's more like a major kind of sound. Whereas if it's more minor, if it's slower, it can give this. It can invoke like dread. It can evoke sorrow. It can make things feel really down. And I wanted to put a lot of energy into these, and even though I think some of them may have been in minor still, like it's really interesting when you take something like minor being seen as negative and major being seen as positive as far as emotions, and being able to kind of flip that and use minor to like get the opposite effect.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Look to the Sky, that was another one that kind of had some meaning to it, just kind of like inspiring one to look up and kind of like think positively, to just keep your head up and keep going forward.
That's a good message.
And then A Moment to Breathe, that was the only, well, I shouldn't say only, I think it's one of 2 lo-fi songs I worked on. There was another one called Air It Out, which was one of the unreleased songs that will probably come out at some point, but not this year, because I've got some other things lined up for this year, and I just really don't want to add too much more to it, because I've already got so much planned. It's like, it's crazy that I even planned all of this, but I really wanted to get it all out as soon as possible. But A Moment to Breathe, as the title kind of sounds, is just like, take a second to take things in. Breathe.
Yeah. I thought that worked. It caught me off guard, in all honesty. I was just kind of like, oh wow, this is like a lot more slower, and it was like literally a moment to breathe, and I wasn't expecting it coming off of like everything else in the album. It was just there, and I was like, whoa, okay, cool, this works.
And right after that came probably the most interesting track out of the entire album, which is Lurk / In the Dark. Because I couldn't decide on either title, so I'm like, I'll just call it both. But this was an interesting one because it came later than all of the others. It was after Gems and Luster. After that had already come out, and while I was getting things together for Look to the Sky, trying to figure out what tracks I wanted on there from what I had written, and I started messing around with hybrid trap a little bit, and that came out of it. I'm like, well, this is really good, and this is something I haven't done before, and I want to release this. So I kind of just tacked it on at the end of the album, which I hope doesn't like discredit the song
Yeah.
because it's tacked on, but like
This song is my
there's
favorite out of the whole album. Like, I love it. It's really just, it hits for me. Yeah,
Lurk.
Lurk in the Dark really hits for me.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know.
Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, did you have another question?
Uh, yeah, I have like two kind of harkening back to the Unison interview. Uh, so the first one is why are they all named the way they are? I mean, you kind of answered that, but like, is there any like anything, any like other thing that's like profound or interesting? Like how you said Operation Crank It was the funnest. What was like something similar to that, where it's just like a trivia or whatever?
Profound. I kind of explained most of
Yeah.
them. Finer Things, I thought just it seemed like the kind of song that would like it's dubstep, but it seemed like the kind of song that like seemed. Well, I wouldn't say it seemed fancy because dubstep's a weird thing to think is fancy.
You're just in.
Unless like you walk into a rave and it's like, wow, that's some bumping bass.
You walk into a rave and like everyone's like sitting down,
I kind of
eating
figured
steak.
just like from the way the eating the steak while your ears.
Yeah.
It's so loud. I can't even taste the food.
This wine does not go with my steak at all. Please turn down the bass. It's ruining the wine.
Okay. Well, no, Finer Things, I think I called it that because of the inclusion of like the piano and the strings, and I thought, that's kind of fancy.
Yeah.
Make you appreciate the finer things in life, but I thought finer things in life would sound kind of cheesy, so I just was like, finer things, because that sounds better. I have the list of, I have the track list in front of me for Look to the Sky, and the list of songs I'd made during Gems and Luster. And I still have written next to Finer Things, may rename, because I guess I wasn't entirely sure about it until I announced it and put it up out to stores and was like, well, I guess this is what I'm calling it now.
I guess it's stuck like that. Okay, so the other one is, why are they in this like specific order? Is there any like intent of like having them like start with Stars Above, then go to Gems of a Distant Luster, then Sun During the Rain, then Waves in the Morning, then 128th, then Heart Racing, then Diamonds in a Rut, then Finer Things, then Look to the Sky, then Turmoil, then A Moment to Breathe, and so on?
Part of it kind of had to do with where it came when I made them and wrote them down. Like, initially with Gems and Luster, like, I just kind of picked the songs seemingly at random down the list, but it was in the order of how I had written them on the list. So, like, there was Gems of Different Luster for the first song. Second song I chose was Sun During the Rain, then Waves in the Morning, 124 Beat Wave, Heart Racing, and Diamond in a Rut. But I also kind of, after picking them, listened to them together to see if it worked, and it did. So that's how the second through seventh song, because of the inclusion of Stars Above. Stars Above, I was just kind of messing around, and I thought it would make for a good intro track, and I chose to have it go at the beginning because of that. And I also liked the way it kind of transitioned into Gem of Different Luster, because even though it's a bit of a stark difference going from kind of 80s synth to like EDM with Gem of Different Luster, which I guess it feels kind of weird to call Gem of Different Luster EDM because of the prominence of piano.
Yeah.
But there is the synth and bass and such in there, and the drums. Such as how music is made.
Yeah.
I like the way that worked, and then Finer Things, kind of similar thing. Finer Things came before Look to the Sky in the list, and then Turmoil, then A Moment to Breathe, and then, like I mentioned, Lurk was the last one, and that came last because of that. But at the same time, like I said, like listening to it to see if it worked, and to me it worked, because similar to how I had set things up with Unison, the track list used to be very different for it before I had changed it to release it, because I wanted to have the songs not only in the order in which I had written them, but also in the order in which, like the order in which they had been made, and kind of like grouping them all together. So like Lobby and Take a Seat were originally right next to each other, but I thought it'd make more sense to spread out the two lo-fi tracks so they could kind of act as this resting point in between the music. So like you wouldn't just listen to two lo-fi songs in a row and then the rest of it be like the different electronic sound and have like absolutely nothing until the album's finished to kind of rest your ears and be like calm things down. Because I like to think that people, for the most part, don't like to just be on this non-stop train ride.
I get that. Yeah.
And like Finer Things is a bit more mellow after Diamond in a Rut, so that kind of acts like that a little bit. Waves in the Morning and Sun During the Rain are both kind of mellow, so they they're both mellow, but they also kind of build up in a little bit between Generative and Lesser to 128 beat rave. So like they're that breathing point, a moment to breathe, but also like it's bringing it down and then right back up again. So there's a couple of different factors to it between the order in which I wrote them, how I feel they work and sound to me, and I kind of just think that's the way I want it to be, and I figure that will sound good to other people.
Yeah, I mean,
and so far that's worked.
Yep. So I don't really have any other question to ask. Do you have anything?
So I mentioned before that there was one song that was intended for both the EP and the album, and has yet to be released. This song is titled Kid Stuff, which is originally meant to feature a friend of mine who goes by Karam, which if he sees this and I mispronounced that name, I apologize. So Kid Stuff. Kid Stuff was a hip-hop track that I had made pretty early on in production. It was the second song I had written and composed after Generative and Lester, and was a part of that whole long list of tracks I had started on at that point. And the reason it's called Kid Stuff was I like the kind of hip hop where it's like they're talking about their past, especially like things that happened in their youth and how it affected them growing up.
Yeah.
Like what made the person who they are. And in addition to that, I had a pack of sounds called Toy Shop, which essentially what the producers behind that did was they took a bunch of different toys, and like if they had built-in sounds, like recorded those and done stuff with them, or like they would put them down, hit stuff against them just like to get different sounds. And a lot of it is like kind of percussion or Foley sounds, but there was some or like toy piano, a couple of toy pianos and such like that. And I took those and I used it to make this hip-hop track. I did throw in some other stuff, but for the most part it was made using these sounds, and I thought it was kind of cool and sounded like kid stuff, toys. So and Karam, around that time, I met him around that time, and he had shown me and a couple other people in a group we're in on Discord part of a rap he had started writing, a verse, and it kind of went along with that. So I talked to him about either using that or writing something similar and rapping for the track, and he was all for it. And over time, like I talked to him asking about how it was going for him, and he got to record it, but then had some trouble with the studio. I believe that's how the story went, and that's what I remember him saying. And then after that, he said he was going to record it himself, and then he decided to do a different take of it, and then the whole pandemic happened, and he wasn't able to record because he was recording at school, and he can't go to school if school's closed.
Yeah.
So the track is kind of on an indefinite hiatus right now,
Mm-hmm.
which kind of sucks because I was really excited to see what he would do with it and to work with him on this.
That.
But it is something that will come out in the future.
So speaking of like the whole entire indefinite hiatus thing, since your album is like one of probably 3 albums to release this year, who do you plan on taking to the Grammys?
Who do I plan to take to the Grammys?
Yeah.
Well, as unlikely as it is that I will get to go to the Grammys, that would be a tough choice.
Yes, it would be.
I'm assuming that you're kind of hinting towards you.
What? No. Not at all.
Because we've worked together on film.
Yeah, but no. This
But
is...
it would really kind of depend.
Yeah, of course. Mm-hmm. Okay. Good answer. Well, I guess this is... I don't know. How do they normally do it in, like, talk shows? They never... they always be like, make sure you stay tuned next week, because we're going to release something just as epic. And if you want to see any behind-the-scenes details, make sure you follow either me at xninja555 or at Gamespherecast Spherical on Twitter. And to make sure you view the next airing of the show, subscribe to our YouTube channel down below. And do you have any final words to say, Mr. Paradox Multimedia of Paradox Multi-Media?
Check out Look to the Sky. It's out on Spotify, it's on Google Play Music, it's on iTunes and Apple Music, it's on iHeartRadio. It's pretty much anywhere you can find it. Also check out my other music, and if you want to keep up to date with me, you can check me out on Twitter at ParadoxMM_.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's pretty much it.
Alrighty. Well, remember to stay epic. Make sure you edit in like the like some like good closing music and like the crowd like clapping. And keep this into me saying you to do this, since I think it would be funny.